are listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio, hosted by Steve Jenny and his satanic assistant, Alex Montini, both of whom can't go into churches without vomiting.
Nocturnal Frequency Radio with your hosts, Steve and Alex.
And welcome to Nocturnal Frequency Radio here live exclusively on the New Visions Radio Network. How you doing, Alex?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm good. You know, barring this never-ending cold that's wreaking havoc, just like, well, I don't understand. You know, we go from 40 degrees to 5 in just a matter of days.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, what's up with that? You know, don't get me wrong. I love this weather. This is the fall. I love the fall. This is what the fall is all about, right?
That's right.
That's right?
Yes, it is. And Halloween.
And Halloween, well, that's another story in itself, right?
Exactly.
So we managed to get out and do the Hermitage Ghost Walk last night.
That's right. Yeah.
So what'd you think of it? I mean, we've been on it before, obviously.
Yeah, we've done it before, and it was good. It was,
what do you like about it? What'd you like about it the most?
Well, I like the fact that it's going through the forest, first of all. You're going through like a wooded area to get to where you need to go. That's always, adds atmosphere to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and just the stories that go with it.
Yeah, but I like that part. Don't get me wrong, but wouldn't it be a lot better if it was like in the dark?
Yes. With
no light and people like stumbling and falling all over the place.
That's a liability issue.
I know. But I mean, okay, I get it. Stop and turn all the lights off and have, I guess, one lantern going or whatever. Just minimal light as possible while you're telling a story. Mm-hmm. I think that's the best way you're going to sort of interpret things. I mean, you're standing in the middle of a forest and you're telling a creepy story. Mm-hmm. You don't want to see the surroundings.
No.
Right? You don't. I mean, we're human, and I mean, one of our basic instincts is to fear the dark. I mean, since the dawn of man, since we, invented fire, mm-hmm. The fire always gave us that sense of security and safety because we could see, but we could never see the surrounding, direct surrounding area around the fire because it was dark. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are reasons why campfire tales are the best.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So what did you think? I mean, that was the first time I've been to the Hermitage since they've renovated it.
Same here. I mean, the last time I went was with you as well, and that was, a few years ago, 2-3 years ago, or something like
I
that.
think it was like 2 years ago.
Something like that. No, it was good. I enjoyed it.
I love that place. I mean, I remember, I think it was 2000, oh God, no. Yeah, 2007? Something like that. I don't know. When we did a private investigation of the Hermitage, thanks to Conservation Hamilton. And that was an experience. But what was really odd about that, well, odd, eerie, whatever else, and I think I told you this already, you know, the person that we dealt with through Conservation Hamilton who allowed us to go in and do a proper investigation and, you know, was there and accompanied us and, you know, told us a little bit about, you know, each area and stuff like that, you know, giving us information. You know, after the initial investigation, on his way home, he was killed in a head-on car accident.
I think you told me that story.
Yeah. Really sad. And, you know, something that really, really profoundly, you know, stays with you, obviously. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, you even though you obviously weren't there when it happened, but you're still connected to it.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of knew the person, obviously. You were with them just like hours beforehand or after, you know, whatever. Yeah. And, yeah, it's just really weird. Really weird place. The Hermitage is full of intriguing history and tales and all sorts of stuff. Yeah. So, you know, continuing on with the fall, you know, what else have you been doing? You know, sort of getting yourself into the mood or, tradition, I guess. I mean, things that you do around this time of the year.
A couple of things. Well, I mean, aside from listening to like remember that app I showed you the other day, HalloweenRadio.net?
Yeah.
Listening to that kind of gets you in the mood. Reading the usual book I read every year. That also brings me back in the mood.
What is it, The Black Alchemist?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So reading that, and just watching whatever I can get a chance to watch something like horror related or something like Halloweeny, I guess, for lack of a better term.
What, the Great Pumpkin Patch, Charlie Brown?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, actually, I recently bought the entire 4 seasons of the Poltergeist: The Legacy.
Yeah. I remember it. I didn't really watch it, but
I used to love that show.
Yeah. It sounds pretty cool. It's one of those shows that I'll have to eventually get into and check it out. So
yeah, it was way ahead of its time when it came out. But anyway, I finally got my hands on the complete set,
mm-hmm.
and so I started watching that again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. That gets you kind of in the mood.
Yeah, so what about anything else? Like, I mean, we went to the Hermitage. Have you gone anywhere else, sort of, like, what else?
Yeah, I went to the Black Creek Pioneer Village Walk on Friday.
Yeah.
And this Friday coming up, we're going to Casa Loma again.
That's right. Casa Loma. Talk about stories, right?
Mm-hmm. History.
That's obviously an area that's rich in history and many stories. Yeah, it's really cool because, I mean, it's interesting how things sort of pop out of nowhere that you're like, wow, how come I didn't know about this before?
Yeah.
You know, something as small as like, locally, like next week, we're heading across the border there, mm-hmm. and I'm going to a place in Clarence, New York called the Great Pumpkin Patch.
Right.
And if you do like a Google search of this place, man, it's just insane how people will get into the festival feeling of harvest than Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
You know. And it's really neat. And I always found, obviously, when you go across the border into the U.S., it's a lot more, obviously, more present than it is here in Canada. I mean, it is pretty present in Canada, but not quite as much as it is in the U.S. I mean, there's some places you can go in the U.S. and you're like, wow, this is just awesome.
Yeah.
You know, especially small town USA.
That's right.
You know, many, especially up here in, you know, the Northwest and you know, up, you know, Western New York and stuff like that. You know, the small town, they get right into it. You know, they decorate it like there's no tomorrow.
That's a good thing.
Well, I know it's a great thing. I mean, you know, as scary as it is, like, you know, we chatted a little bit about it before. Going down even to Buffalo into Lovejoy, Buffalo, which is a little area of Buffalo there, a little section of Buffalo that's very historic. I'm not going to slam it, but it's not one of the safest areas. But I mean, you know, when you go there, it's just amazing because we went down there because we did the Iron Island Museum, and that neighborhood, man. I mean, they really do up. You know, the whole street is nothing but one gigantic Halloween decoration, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's amazing, and you don't see that here.
No, you don't.
You don't.
It's unfortunate, but you don't.
It isn't. I mean, you see the odd person that is right into Halloween or into the season, whatever, and they do their house up or whatever. Even just small little things. It doesn't have to be grandeur or anything like that, but just a little bit, even, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But you still have a lot of, like, last year we had a lot of kids come to our house. And I know when you help your friend there do up, your neighbor, ex-neighbor, neighbor, whatever, do up his place. I mean, you guys must have a lot of kids coming there as well.
Yeah, we got about 200 to 300 kids a night.
You know, exactly. See, I remember when I first moved out this way, there was like maybe 10, 20 kids.
Yeah.
You know, if that. Now, there's got to be, close to 150, 200 kids.
That's good.
You know? So, yeah. Anyways, tonight we're going to be joined when we come back from our break by a friend of ours who's been on the show before, and we definitely look forward to having her back on, and that's Canada's most haunted, Michelle Desrochers. I'm looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm. Likewise.
You know, catching up, seeing what she's been up to, what she's been working on, and she's busy. She's always busy. So we want to catch up. So if you'd like to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Dark Discussions. Holy moly. Discussions. Facebook, just simply type in www.facebook.com/Nocturnal Frequency Radio. And, of course, our BVM group, which is just like, almost 2,000?
That's close to 2,000. Yeah.
Almost 2,000 now. Wow, that's incredible. That's pretty cool. So check that out if you're on BBM as well. You know what? We're I'm just thinking, Alex.
Mm-hmm.
We have to also mention that our good friends at Phased Escape Rooms.
Yes.
You got to take advantage of this, guys. You really have to take advantage of this because, I mean, if you like escape rooms, go on down to Phased Escape Rooms in Burlington, Ontario, and you get a discount. What is it, 15%, right?
Mm-hmm.
15% if you used Nocturnal 2018, and you got to tell them who the show's mascot is.
That's right.
And who's that? We can say it.
We could say, well, it's Frankie.
Well, there you go. It's easy, right?
That's right.
So yeah, definitely go check that out. If you're like a big fan of escape rooms, you definitely have to go check out Phased Escape Rooms in Burlington, Ontario. So if you're close by, check it out. Definitely. It'll be awesome. Awesome. Anyways, let's see. We're going to take a short break here. And when we come back, we are going to have Canada's most haunted, Michelle Desrochers. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Nocturnal Frequency Radio here live exclusively on the New Visions Radio Network. And, well, we're not going to waste any time. Hi, Michelle.
Hi. How are you?
Good. What, we're going to continue our conversation here. No. Welcome to the show. Welcome back.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be back.
And what have you been up to? What's new and exciting? Because I you're a busy person.
Yeah. So they tell me. Yeah, I'm pretty busy. I guess, gosh, what's happened since the last time I was on your show? Had I been to Scotland yet? Had I been to Scotland, south of France, and all that? When was I last on?
Oh, wow. You know what? I don't even think. I think that was before that happened. Yeah, I don't think you'd been to Scotland.
Had I been to Romania yet?
Yes, I remember you were talking about that, but not Scotland.
Okay.
I remember Romania.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yes. Well, I do tend to travel quite a bit, and I went to Scotland actually with my son and I. We went and met up with my dear friend who's also a Canada's Most Haunted team member, and she's my travel guru. So we met up with her in Scotland and doing some lineage stuff more than anything. So I went to places like Rawson Chapel, of course, Edinburgh, the Highlands. You can't not go to the Highlands, and had some great experiences there, and then flew to the south of France and went to Rennes-le-Château and the city of Carcassonne, because I have a lot of rich lineage. I have a lot of Templars in my family. Okay. So for those who don't know, Carcassonne was a huge Templar. They call it a fortress, but it's just like a small city. It's just crazy, how they did things back then. So of course, while I'm there, completely tucked away, just some DVDs and photos and got some really impressive stuff. So I love to travel, and it was really a joy for me to be able to, take one of my kids with me this time. I say my kids, they're all in their 20s, but
they're always kids, though, right?
They are. They are. I'm just terrible too. I'm just an overbearing parent, and it's like, all right, bow down to the kids. but aside from that, it's just been a lot of cases and film and usual.
Let me ask you about the whole Templar thing and that. What first got you interested in wanting to know more about that? Your lineage. Some of the people that you're related to that were a part of all this. Well, I'm really fortunate. As a child, I know very little about my father's side of the family. Odds and ends, and ironically enough, when I did my genealogy, which I did long before the Ancestry.com days, I mean, years ago, I dealt with a lab, and I had that done, and found out I have more of my father's genes in me, totally different than everything that came up in our family tree on my mother's side. And I come to learn that my mom's parents have had their ancestors have crisscrossed through hundreds of years. Like where my grandmother married my grandfather, well, their ancestors actually married up, or they were all affiliated going through time. And we're talking from northern France. I've got, Templar family there who essentially helped on my grandfather's side. And my grandmother's side has Templars down through, Spain and Portugal. And she comes in and has ancestry. Well, William the Conqueror was her ancestor, and my grandfather's ancestor, the knight, he fought in the Battle of Hastings, which put literally my grandmother's ancestor, William the Conqueror, who people don't realize was a grandson of Rollo, the Viking. And they put him on the throne of France. He was the only French king ever to occupy, the throne of England for more than 20 years. Never stepped foot, I don't think, in Britain.
built the Tower of London, so left a really nice landmark, and all that stuff's documented. So that's how we end up going up through all England and Scotland and Ireland, and all of that was from that battle, and people settled. It's crazy. But when my grandfather did the family tree, my uncle took over after he passed away, and spent years doing it, and literally wrote a huge hardcover book. So I'm really well documented, in respects to my lineage. And it was pretty funny because my sister went to a psychic up north, a couple of years back, and had no idea who I was, and basically made mention to her and said, your family has been fighting evil for hundreds of years. Mm-hmm. And, you need to keep this up. And my sister's like, yeah, like, whatever. I don't do that. But I have a pretty crazy sister who'll do it. So I thought it was really an interesting statement, considering, that I choose and probably excel more in working with malevolent hauntings or alleged demonic, because you can't scream the D word every time something goes down. But I just seem to have more patience, because they tend to be very long cases, and I have more patience for those, I think, than most people.
Well, yeah, I think patience are definitely a good thing when you're dealing with some of this stuff. It's just incredible. Well,
you're dealing with people's religious backgrounds, their mindset. Like I said, I had to go in, and I just did an online counseling course, not because I cared to be certified in it, more so just so I could learn how to properly communicate with people, read body language, what you shouldn't say, what you should say. It's just going that extra mile, to be a little bit more diligent in the fact that I am dealing with people here, and they are first and foremost what matters. It's strange because I do so much television, and I really see what goes on behind the scene and what ends up on the cutting room floor, etc. But there's so much out there, and people think that this is really what goes on until, this is how an investigation is done, for example, and they're shocked when they hear me say, you know what, the evidence is the last thing I'm concerned about. I am concerned more about, why does this person think they're haunted? What's causing them to think it? The children are terrified. They're having all these experiences. I'm worried about their safety. I'm worried about their well-beings, their frame of mind, our safety when we go in. Mm-hmm. If I could put all of that on the table and make it work, and if I can get evidence out of that in the end, then great. But it's not my priority going in.
Yeah, and it's I'm terrible for harking on stuff like that. And it's true, because I mean most people, when they approach this field, if you will, it's to them it's still a thrill. They're more worried about garnering, finding some sort of evidence or looking for a quote unquote ghost or whatnot, and not really understanding the actual consequences of having to deal with real people.
Well, that's exactly it. Like, at what cost? The evidence, at what cost does it come?
Yeah.
And when you go into somebody's house and you start barking off commands, which, I mean, I just want to slap somebody when I hear that. Oh, I command you to do this, and I demand you. Well, who the hell are you exactly? I don't feel that we as researchers have the right to go in and make an invitation under somebody else's roof. When people are entrusting themselves to us, we don't have the right to put them in danger, because when you put that invitation out, that makes it a little bit more serious, because we get to leave, and they get stuck. They get left behind.
Exactly, yeah.
So who are we to take that chance with people? I don't think people get it. They really get it.
Yeah. I mean, and that's an important aspect. I mean,
For me, for sure.
Well, yeah, and they're a homeowner, for instance. They're dealing with this particular location on a daily basis. They live through it. This is their life, and you're just peering in, maybe through an overnight investigation or whatever, collecting some sort of readings, whatnot. But I mean, you're only peering into that and not really truly understanding exactly what's going on.
Well, for sure. There's that's the paranormal, right?
Yeah.
It's that big question mark, and everyone has their own techniques. I don't go in and do typical investigations so much anymore because I deal primarily in really aggressive hauntings, and I've come to terms with the fact a long time ago that what matters to me the most are the people, and if I'm getting them all telling me roughly the same thing, then I have to work on my mediumship to a certain degree. It's very hard. People always say, why do you work with mediums if you're a medium? I said, well, first of all, no, I'm practicing medium. I don't do readings. I don't do stuff like that, but I'm also the one that people want to deal with. I'm in the forefront. So they're telling me everything. So I can definitely go into location, pick up all kinds of things. But how credible is it going to be when I've just pretty much been told everything? So I work with several, different mediums, depending on which area, of the world I'm in, or the city, the country, whatever. And it's kind of just like validation, or because they read differently, I'll learn something new. I think it's important. But I don't go in, I'll set up cameras while I'm just doing interviews, or I'll let the tape recorders roll, so to speak. It's seldom now, that I will go in. If I feel there's really something malevolent there, it's seldom that I will go in and start doing EVPs and invite any kind of communication. I just feel that, again, if I'm asking to communicate with something and I leave, and this thing wants to keep communicating, and the family is like, well, we don't want to talk to it, because I always teach people, acknowledgement is empowerment. Just let it be, just let it be, and just let us sort it out together and work on this together. And then we'll see who's best suited, to help you in this situation. But, if I'm doing all this communication, it's like this thing's thinking, well, you wanted to talk to me half an hour ago. Now they're really pissed off.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm a little unorthodox in how I do things. Now,
that's a good thing, I think, though. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I think that's great that you're unorthodox.
It works.
Yeah,
and
whatever works for you, yeah.
Well, it's worked for a lot of the people that I've worked for, or, who have brought me who've entrusted themselves to me, so to speak. I don't want to go in and just start communicating with things. I get more EVPs from throwing that tape recorder down, or like I get people who videotape me when I walk around, things like that, right? I've had things come through while I'm being videotaped and commenting, because I'll purposely comment on things, right, as I'm walking through. And I do the same thing with recorders. If I'm having an interview, things like that, and I just drop other recorders, it's amazing what comes through. Because they're being ignored, and they don't want to be ignored.
Alex, are you being ignored over there?
I am being ignored.
Are you taping this?
Oh yes,
Steve. Are you taping this, Steve?
We've tried for a long time here, Michelle, to find a way to strip away Alex's his ghost deterrent shield. We just can't figure it out. We don't know. Alex needs to have a good experience to become a believer.
Keep running away from me.
Oh, so in other words, we don't use you as a trigger object.
No,
it'll be the opposite.
You don't want to bring him into a haunted location. Otherwise, it's not going to be haunted anymore.
Oh,
he'll scare them away.
We don't want that. No, that would be terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends. Like in all honesty, some of the stuff I work with, I can use an Alex.
Well, there you go, Alex.
I I'm available for hire.
Okay, perfect. I'll bear that in mind. We're gonna test that theory. How much of a deterrent you are.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. Oh, it's like a natural cleansing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who needs sage when you have me?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm willing to test that theory.
Wait a sec. He's Italian, so there's some sage in there somewhere, right? Natural sage. Natural sage.
Did you say oregano?
Yes, I did.
Outstanding.
So what would you like to see? Let me ask you, what would you like to see? And I hate saying the community because I don't know. It's hard to see what the community is. But, I mean, the paranormal itself, I guess people, researchers, whatever, what would you like to see sort of happen for it to sort of further itself and sort of gain some ground in trying to understand what's going on?
That's a loaded question.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm like you. Do you call it a community? I don't know, because I hear so much about paranormal unity, and I'm all for it. I will work with. I will, and I have worked with some amazing people. If I've had people reach out to me, and say, "Look, we have a problem. Could you advise on it?" Sure, I'll give as much of my time as possible, because I believe you have to pay it forward. It's what it's all about, paying it forward.
Yeah.
And I give as much of my time to anybody really who needs it, to within my abilities. Like I get about 50 private messages a day just on Facebook, not counting my other social media, and about 700 or 800 notifications a day just on Facebook. It is not humanly possible for me to get to everybody in a reasonable amount of time. And I have a large fan base, and I adore them. I have a lot of friends. I've met so many amazing friends, met so many awesome people, but I don't always have time to chat online. I try to get back to as many people as I can, but it's very difficult. So with that being said, it's hard. I try, like I said, to give as much of myself as I can, and I know I probably have a few disappointed people in there, but I don't turn down people who come to me and want to speak with me, or they'll see me at a store and they'll come, and everyone's got a story to tell, and I'm always happy to listen, right?
Yeah.
But when it comes to the industry, I really would love to see paranormal unity, if it's at all possible, because I find there's just so much backstabbing and aggression, and I don't understand why, because there's so much to go around. Honestly, it's like there's so much to go around. There's just like, I'm on. How many places are there to go and investigate? I find with television being what it is, social media, everybody's got a group, and I think it's great, because there's a lot of places and communities that don't have groups. They don't have ghost tours. They don't have places that they can get together. And I truly believe that we're all students, and we're always going to be students. I don't believe in experts in the field, despite what television says. I don't believe in experts in the field. I don't believe there's experts in things that can't be explained, but I do believe that there are a lot of people out there that have it down a little bit better than others. And not everybody who has a group on social media should be. Sometimes people do more damage than good, because I've cleaned up a lot of that damage.
Oh yeah.
Right? Well, right?
Yeah.
You've done it.
Yeah.
Right?
It's and I always hark back to one thing, and I've mentioned it a few times on the show, and there is so much messiness out there, and like, for instance, I spoke to Alex knows about this particular incident that happened. Like, I got an email from an elderly couple who had issues in their home, and of course, no names, no whatever, but whatever. They were having issues in their home. They were having something unusual happened that they couldn't explain, and that they were very, very concerned. And they, I guess, reached out to I think it was a husband-wife team of something, whatever, that went into their house and told them that they had something very demonic in their house, and that it needed to be cleansed. And they're like, well, they didn't understand. Okay, whatever it takes to get rid of this. This is frightening. We're confused. We just don't understand. We have nowhere else to turn to. And okay, $8,000 later.
Oh my God!
$8,000 later, they were told that the house has been cleansed. You're fine now. Everything should be okay. And of course, it wasn't. They were still having the issues, and I know they managed to take these two to court and get their money back. But
terrible.
When we went into the house, we were able to explain exactly what was going on through natural means.
Wow.
It was just something very simple, naturally occurring in the house. That's all they needed to that's all they needed. Instead, somebody went in there and took advantage of them, and that's the problem. There's a lot of that still going on. I know Alex and I have talked about it many times on the show. What are your thoughts about having some sort of regulation with the paranormal?
I think there has to be.
Yeah.
It's very
Thank God,
hard.
someone who agrees with me.
It's not that I agree with you, but
I think to a degree there has to be. It's very hard to regulate something like that.
Yeah.
Like for myself, like I said, I have insurance, right? So I go into somebody's home, I'm insured. If somebody on my team accidentally knocks something over, for example, it is sometimes something that simple, I'm insured. Well, aside from the fact, like most people know of me, so I'm pretty much an open book, but I think people should make themselves aware. I always try when I meet people to sit down and not only ask about what they're going through, but I try to give them as much information about myself so they're comfortable. I mean, these people have my cell phone number. They can text me day or night. Like I'm really accessible to them when I agree to work with them. But I feel like I hear stories like this, Steve, a lot.
Yeah.
And first of all, it's bad juju to charge money for crap like that. That's going to come back and bite you in the behind. Okay.
Yeah.
I get for expenses, then produce
Well,
receipts.
yeah. I mean,
if somebody's trying to fly me down to the States or they want me to fly across the pond, I'm sorry, you're going to have to pay for that.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's. I completely agree. I mean, that there are certain things that there are factors that have to be in there. I get that, and I agree with that. Yeah.
Not the service.
Yeah.
Not the service. I get people have to make a living. But first of all, you're charging to get rid of something. You can't ever guarantee, first of all, if there is something there, that you can get rid of it. I've done cases, and years later, they've resurfaced. But for whatever reason, maybe it's the individual that's got the attachment, and it resurfaces. So I have to tackle it again. Like, there's never a guarantee with that. And like you say, there's like natural causes. Like, part of my investigation kit is a carbon monoxide detector. It's basic, but you end up with a slow carbon monoxide leak. You're going to hallucinate, and you're just going to like think you're constantly being watched and paranoid, and let's not even get into like PK, like poltergeist stuff. Let's not even touch on that.
Yeah.
Which is totally self-induced.
Come on, you don't like that ectoplasma?
Wow. Well, get me going now. We can be up here. We can be here for 4 hours. Yeah. But the point is there's so much.
Yeah.
And it's all, like I said, everybody's an expert. There's a lot of good teams out there. I communicate with a lot of good people who give so much of their time, and they go out of pocket to do it. And I'm grateful for people like that, because that's the kind of people we need. There's too many people out there, like I said, with social media, there's a lot of groups out there that shouldn't be doing this. And unfortunately, trying to weed through them all is very difficult. When I work with people, I try to educate them. I have worked with a lot of people who have gone on and they started their own paranormal groups, or just decided just to start helping other people. My people that I've worked with over the years, if something rears its head again, they're not those fearful people anymore. They're ready to kick ass, and I'll usually get a call and say, oh, hey, I just want you to know, this thing started happening again. Like, oh, they're like, no, we got it. Just wanted you to know. all right, that's good, perfect. So regulating, that's a tough question. I do believe that if there's a way to do it, it should be at least to a degree.
See, and I agree with that. And Alex, I do agree with you, but I think it's really tough.
Yes,
everything is tough initially. Yeah. It's like the argument I said before. Before, modern medicine was regulated. Everybody could make any claims they want, and they did. And even to this day, with regulation, you still get those guys out there making ridiculous claims that certain oils will cure you of cancer. However, once they got regulation under wraps, so to speak, and they were able to establish that, now the onus is on the individual who makes such claims to actually prove it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not going to be an easy battle. That goes without saying. But the point is that we're never going to get any further in this field unless we move towards that step.
Yeah.
But here's a potential problem. You're dealing with people, like I say, like get bonded, like security checks. I've been RCMP cleared. I used to work for the Canadian government. I just been poked and prodded and everything else, But it's not like, I know when I film shows that I go stateside, there has to be police checks involved. They want criminal background checks, which is ideal. Maybe that's something that needs to be considered. I don't know. But sometimes when you're dealing with people who are so scared, for example, they don't care. They don't care what your background is. Just come in, and if you can help me, great. And then that being said, okay, maybe you've got a shady past, but you come back and you're a good person. Like, where do you draw the line? You know what I mean? Like, it's tough to decide what type of regulation you need.
Yeah.
My only thing with regulation is not so much that. I mean, that is important to a point, obviously, but it's more of the ludicrous claims that get made all the time. So with the scientific community, obviously, you have peer review, and it gets scrutinized by other people of that field. This is what's needed here.
Well,
in other words,
yes and no. I've dealt with real assholes in this business. You get people, they just up and decide, no, we just don't agree with how they do things.
Right,
it's
but
like,
right now it's not regulated though. So you're gonna have assholes. I mean, you have assholes even in the scientific community as well. You're never gonna get away from that.
There are just groups that spend too much time researching other groups, and they're not researching the matter at hand. What kind of researcher are you? Are you a paranormal researcher, or are you just I'm just going to research all the groups researcher? And you want to be a credible paranormal researcher as well. Like, it's just take your pick, because they're out there.
And that's a whole new, not a whole new, but that's a whole sort of
a whole other
grouping itself conversation there. I mean, like, when you're talking about researching, I mean, what does it involve? I mean, when it comes to the paranormal, what does that involve? I mean, it's such a broad spectrum. I mean, most people will think won't even think about historical. You know?
Have to.
Exactly.
I taught the kids at Casa Loma this when they would come in to do a tour, and I'd say, okay, first thing I'd say, who likes science? Their little hands would barely go up. Okay, what about history? So then I gave them a story about a ghost situation, like a tale of the castle.
Yep.
And then they're looking at me and they're like, well, who was that? I'm like, I don't know. And they went, where did they come from? I said, I don't know. And they're like, well, how do you know? I don't know. And they look at me, but it was in layman's terms. I said, so you see, how about I do it like this now? And I went through the history behind it and some of the stuff that we used to try to show, activity, because proving existence that's a whole other thing, right? People look at, like equipment that they use for ghost research and go, well, this is science. Well, it's not a laboratory. I call it tools of the trade more than anything else. But I guess it's the next best thing. It's as close as we can get out in the field, right? Mm-hmm. But I mean, they have to go hand in hand. Like, you have to try to get the background of a location, of the people. A lot of people don't want to be bothered with that. They just want to go in. They think you go in with cameras and tape recorders, and that's it. You get your evidence, and you're done.
And that's the thing. I mean, you can do that. You can go in there and you might get some findings. You might get an EVP or anything like that, and then you sit there and go, without any prior knowledge of or history of the location, how do I link it? Is this maybe somebody who might have been here, trying to communicate, or is this some residual energy from somebody who passed away here? These sort of things. They just like, how do you put them together, right? Without knowing the history.
Well, I think, like I said, that's where people don't want to take the time and do the research. Everything, without all of that, everything is just perception.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, everything is perception. It doesn't matter what it is. So you have to have something to back it up in one form or another, at least a little bit. I don't know why people don't take the time to do it. I think history is fascinating.
It's one of the reasons why I enjoy doing it. Mm-hmm. We're going to have a break here in a few minutes, but when I think of investigating the paranormal, I think of it as a project, and I think of each location as a project, and I take a location and I do some research on that location, and that research includes, multiple visitations to that particular location. Mm-hmm. Because what I find is that, obviously you're not going to get all the answers with just one visit. Mm-mm. You only get a piece of it, if you're lucky. But when you start going to a location more than one time, over, months, years, whatever, I'm talking about years with a lot of locations that I deal with. Mm-hmm. It's amazing the amount of information that comes out of those multiple visitations, and you start looking at things that you have found over the years or over the months or over the weeks or whatever, however long you're going in there. Mm-hmm. And, the puzzle seems to, not complete, but the pieces are still missing, obviously. Mm-hmm. But you have a better vision of what to look for the next time you go in there.
Well, you absolutely do. I mean, the more you learn, it shifts which direction your investigation is going into. You know what questions to ask. You build a rapport with the spirits. Like when I've had many locations where I've been fortunate to have years of access to. And I come back to Castle because it's the one everybody knows. But when I first started doing the tours there, we just it was all a matter of trying to get it to a point to make it more interactive for the people. Yeah. And teaching them the history was first and foremost. And I'll tell you, when I started with the spirits there, it got to a point where I think they were very untrusting, some of them. I mean, we had a guy in the tunnel who was like real crotchety, but he lightened up over time. And do you know my last year there, I always made a point before crowds came, I'd walk around and I would just, kind of say hello to everybody and warm them up a bit and just say, this is how many people are going to be here tonight. And, I hate to be an intrusion, but thank you. Thank you for allowing us in. And at one point I walked into Sir Henry's room and I said, hello, Sir Henry, how are you? And I heard a male's voice say, I'm well. I'm like, all right then. But I never gotten that before, and it was just sort of like that interaction. And I heard, and that was a out in the air. I'm not clairaudient. And I heard that clear as day. I was like, wow, I see, that was pretty cool. So you build a rapport, I think, as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, not only do you build a rapport, but you start to, the more you know about, say, perhaps the people who might have been living there or working there, or at some point just they had something to do with that location, and you're I guess your avenue is more personal.
Definitely.
And you start zeroing in on, perhaps because of some of the, maybe EVPs or whatnot, that you've captured, and there seems to be like this common theme with a lot of it. Okay, perhaps this has to be this person because they have some sort of health issue that they're making very apparent that they passed away from, or something like that, and it seems to be linking, and you're like, okay, let's run with it, and it seems to be working over the year, over the visits or whatever else, and it's really, I think, to me, that is the best part of doing this,
Watching everything unfold.
And start to make sense.
Yes. Put the puzzle together.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure it is. Sure it is.
We're going to take a break here. When we come back, let's chat about, obviously more about Canada's Most Haunted, and you're working with Peter Sacco again, aren't you?
Yes.
And we'll talk a little bit about that as well.
Sure.
If we can. Okay.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So, folks, don't go anywhere. You're listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio and our guest, Michelle Desrochers. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Nocturnal Frequency Radio here live exclusively on the New Visions Radio Network. And if you're just tuning in, this evening we have our good friend Michelle Desrochers on from Canada's Most Wanted. Are you really?
Thank you very much.
Canada's Most Haunted. Most Wanted.
Everybody's going to know who I am.
Speaking of, okay, so for those who may not know, what is Canada's Most Wanted?
What is Canada's Most Wanted? Me, apparently.
Yeah. Tell the listeners, I guess, a little bit about Canada's Most Haunted.
Okay, well, Canada's Most Haunted was established in 2001. It's a research company. It is a fully legal company. I did it that way because I wanted to have insurance. I wanted it to be legitimate. But we specialize, obviously, like any other paranormal group, in research. But I think we don't just concentrate on ghosts. We really do concentrate on anything that would be deemed unexplained. And reason for that is because I have actually, through the years, have done cases where you go in there and thinking that you're dealing with, malevolent entity, or even, again, alleged demonic. I've had some crazy EVPs growling and being called every name in the book, things like that.
Yeah.
But what I found interesting was that some of these locations have ended up having anything from extraterrestrial sightings to crypto sightings, So, I've kind of ended up in different, I end up branching off into these different things because of the fact that I'm being faced with them.
Yeah.
So we research essentially anything that is deemed unexplainable internationally. And it is it used to be, pretty much our film, we had a branch that would deal in film, but I'm more so on my own for the most part of that nowadays. So that's what Canada's Most Haunted is. And most people, when I say it, they go, "What's that?" So thank you for the opportunity.
There you go. But it's so true when you say that, though, how it branches off into all these different avenues. Because, initially you're like, well, I want to go investigate ghosts. I want to know what ghosts are. And all of a sudden you're dealing with things that, are just like totally, out of this world sort of thing. And, I know it was always, I wanted to know. The paranormal to me was like investigating the unknown, and in most cases, ghosts, if you will. Sure. And I don't know, I just hate using that word though. But anyhow, I remember having an experience in 2003, and here Alex is going, "Oh, here we go again. Here we go again. Here we go again." And I had this experience that I was working nights late, and I remember I was walking home, and you know where the Credit River is?
Yes.
Okay, so I was walking home and walking over the bridge by the Credit. This is in Mississauga, obviously, and I'm walking, just approaching this bridge, and then all of a sudden, on the opposite side of the road, and this is, I think it was Burnhamthorpe, and it was split in two. So you had a roadway for each direction, and then you had a grassy medium in between, just at the bridge there. And this thing just comes, waltzing out from underneath the bridge on the opposite side, and I see it walking over on all four, and it stops in the middle in the grassy knoll, because it notices me. And as soon as that happened, I'm like, okay, I stopped, and I'm observing this thing, and all of a sudden this thing, gets up on its hind legs and stands there like a human. I'm like, okay, what's going on here? What's my brain? What's my eyes? What am I seeing here? This is like, okay. I'm thinking, what kind of animal can do this? It's not a squirrel. It's much larger than a squirrel, unless it's on friggin' steroids. It's not a raccoon. It's not a coyote, because it's standing there like it's natural. It's not a bear, because it's too thin, and there's no bear in this area. I'm going through this gauntlet of theories as what this might be, and I just can't figure it out.
Oh, I got talk.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very small head, and I couldn't figure it out. Anyways, I'm just standing there staring at it, and then finally it dropped down. It had to be maybe almost 10 minutes, close to 10 minutes, and it just dropped down, and then walked over to the side I was on, and then went back underneath the bridge.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was really crazy, and I remember looking into this, and I remember equating it to a story that appeared in the Toronto Sun in 1972, I think it was. 1972, it was the front page of the Sun, the Toronto Tunnel creature. Right? And the artist's rendition of what the witness had seen, I'm like, wow, this is exactly, minus the glowing red eyes. I didn't see glowing red eyes, but this is exactly what I saw that night. It was just totally insane. Totally insane.
Yeah, see, that there's not enough time on this show to get into.
I know.
I get so many emails and calls about more and more crypto stuff surfacing, and I will say, this, that here, even in Burlington, because we're both from Burlington, there have been sightings of what looks to be like a wolf, I suppose. We don't have them, but they're not coyotes. They're too big, but they're very long. I mean, one report was a mom and a daughter, and they were driving down, I think, Upper Middle Road between Guelph Line and Walker's Line, somewhere around there. And they said that this thing was as wide as the lane, like from tail to nose. They have really long noses. They're very mangy looking, and they don't run, they elope. I've had people from Niagara Falls tell me the same thing. I've had numerous people in Burlington tell me the same thing. I remember years ago having a woman message me, and she said she wanted to tell me a story from the Elora area. I said, okay, because I investigated, a few places up there. And she said, I grew up with my grandfather telling me stories of what was called wolf people. And I'm like, okay, elaborate, please. You got my attention. She said, they had a large property, a farm. And my grandmother used to say, don't go near the edge of the woods over there, because that's where the wolf people are. Mm-hmm. She goes, I really thought it was just a tale telling me just to keep me from going into the woods, right? And she goes, as I got older, she goes, I was probably about 17, and I was visiting my grandmother and grandfather, and I started walking out towards the middle of the farm, the field, and I saw 5 what looked like large dogs walking on their hind legs. They were upright. And one looked over and saw me. She goes, and they went back down, and they ran into the forest. And I've heard 2 different versions of the story. One was a woman who went to a psychic, and she was, I don't know where the psychic fair was, but she went to this woman because she was, she's from my hometown of Guelph, Elora area. She was, I'm going to choose her and go sit down with her. Different woman, okay? And she went down and she started getting this psychic reading, and the psychic basically looked at her and said, you've seen them too. And she goes, see what? She goes, the wolf people. So anyway, getting back to Burlington, there was one sighting where they had these couple of creatures, I guess, dogs, whatever you want to call them, dogmen. I guess they come in all different, names, a lot of in the crypto world. And they ran off, they were running across the road, and when they got on the other side of the road, they actually got upright and apparently walked away. So there are stories coming in like that. Some people believe that's what the Port Robinson beast is, a dog man, wolf person, and we've had people from that area come forth, and eyewitnesses, and one clearly stated, she says, no, I was chased down the road by one of these things. I'm like,
that's pretty freaky.
Well, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking to myself, okay, there's obviously a little bit more to it. I'm never arrogant enough to think that we're all that exists on this planet, but I just never, in all my years, I've been doing this about 15, 16 years, and this is probably, you see it all on television, right? But this is probably in the last 5 years, I've had more and more things like that being sent into me, aside from extraterrestrial stuff, Bigfoot stories, things like that. But this one's a bit close to home, because one was one of my sons, his father, one of my son's friends, his father and him were driving by not too far from here. And I'm in West Burlington, near RBG. And the father basically said, look at that. And they looked and they saw this really long, real manky looking dog-like thing loping down the road and went down off into one of the ravines.
That's been happening more and more recently. Obviously, like you said, you've been getting more reports of it, right?
Yeah. So, yes.
Any reason why you think this all of a sudden is an increase?
I don't know. Are we pushing them out of their habitat with all the building? I don't know, like where you guys are located, but I know in West Burlington, going all the way to Waterdown, there's like 6,000 homes that just went in There's building going on all over the place, everywhere right now. Were they quietly hiding before? I don't know. I'm getting stories going from Niagara Falls all the way to Elora. So I don't know.
And that's a possibility, obviously. But I mean, even before the huge push of urbanization came to be, there were still some people living in those remote areas, albeit sparse. You'd think you'd still hear some of those stories still, even back then.
The Elora stories. I mean, these come from, these women. I mean, this one woman telling me her story, she was a small girl when this happened to her. And she was like easily in her 40s when she was telling me the story.
Yeah. So,
yeah, like you think, is it folklore? Like, what is it? A lot of people, if you think of the Elora area, Guelph area, that's out near the old Pioneer Highway. There's a lot of people who migrated here and settled up through that area. What came on the boat? That's what I want to know, right? Like, you don't know. How many stories do you hear? Where was it? Steve, you guys ever heard the story about somewhere in Ontario, remote little village, where there was a vampire in the town, and they came from like a Germanic area? Do you remember that?
Yes.
And they migrated here, and it turns out that the father was believed to have been a vampire. Like, how many people come in from, the old country, as they say, with a lot of these superstitions, or maybe they're downright things are just traveling along the boats with them.
What was the name of the small town again? Where that?
I can't recall it.
Is it Balaclava? Is it Balaclava?
Oh, I don't know. I can't remember.
I remember exactly that tale. I remember that, and
Creepy Canada covered that story.
They covered it, and I remember. Is it because I don't even think the town exists anymore, does it?
I don't think so. If it does, it's real small. It's never gotten really big. Apparently, even when Creepy covered it, it was just something that was very. I think I remember researching it at the time when I heard it. Yeah, I'd done a few Creepy Canada episodes, Pat and I, years ago.
Yeah,
and I remember the producer just vaguely touching on it with us, like off camera. And I went home and I remember looking it up. And from what memory serves me correctly, it's never been an area that got overpopulated by any means. No, maybe for that reason.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know what, but Balaclava keeps coming to mind. I don't know if that's it or not. And I know Balaclava is not. It's a ghost town now, pretty much.
Yeah, you're right. It is. I'm just going to Google it while I'm sitting here.
So I don't know if that's the town or not, but I mean, for some odd reason, that's the name that comes to mind. But I could be totally way off on that. But yeah, I mean that's the thing. There's just like we had a guy, one of the guys on the team. He had a friend of his that was living up just outside of Huntsville.
Oh yeah.
And he had bought a house that was repurposed. It was it used to be a drug house. And anyhow, he wanted to get out of the city. He was sick and tired of people. He just wanted to get away from it all and have sort of like a quieter lifestyle, and it's really tough. But anyhow, he bought this house, and there was a huge field in behind, and he set up a whole bunch of deer cams because he wanted to see what he had like game wise up there, deer or whatever else, and he was going through the footage, and he was baffled by a series of photos that one of the cameras had taken. So, my friend, the guy in the team, he reached out to him, and my buddy sent me the pictures, and I'm looking at these pictures, Michelle, and I was just like, wow, this is. Okay, this is just incredible. This is screwed right up.
What do you think it was?
Oh, well, okay. I'll give you a scenario, and I gotta find the pictures. I'll let you see the pictures.
Okay, awesome.
But I gotta track them down again. It's been a while. But anyhow, in the pictures, and this is November. It's about 11 degrees out, and very sunny day, beautiful sunny day. And each picture is about, there's not even a split second between them. Okay, as these things are snapping, it's like one after another.
Yeah,
right?
they're motion activated.
Yes,
right? So
yes.
Okay, yeah.
So the first picture, you have the field, and then you have the tree line in the distance there. You have, you can see the birds on the ground. They're grabbing whatever worms or whatever they're doing. They're just like lounging around, sort of thing. And at the top, you've got this really weird white. I don't know how to put it, like swirl, if you will. It's just obviously something's wrong with the file.
Okay.
It's just the metadata is screwed up for some reason. Okay, whatever. The next picture, it's completely like the whole middle. Not the middle, but the whole top is kind of screwed up like that. The next picture, you see this object in the distance just before the tree line. And at first I'm like, what the hell is this shit? What is this, right? And then the next picture, the next picture, it's gone.
Oh.
Okay, so remember, these are split seconds. Okay, what's going on? Like, when I analyze that picture, what it looked like, it looked like a person in a bubble.
Wow, that's crazy.
It was insane.
That is crazy.
It was insane, and I had a whole bunch of photography experts that I deal with. That I said, okay, look at this. Tell me what you think. I got him to send me the metadata and all that for the photos, so that he can analyze this stuff. And they just said, oh, it's whatever's there is there. It's nothing's tampered with the files. The files are as is.
That's crazy.
And
that was Huntsville, eh?
Just outside of Huntsville. And he came on the show to talk about it. It took a lot to get him to come on the show to talk about it. But he added that after that had gone down, there was one night when he was at work, and he was working afternoons. And I remember he said it was late, about 9:30, 10 o'clock. I think it was something like that, right, Alex?
Yeah, to that extent, yeah.
And his wife had called him. She was frantic. And he's like, well, what's going on? What's going on? She's like, I don't know what the hell's going on, but there's something out in the backyard, and it is watching me. And he's like, what are you talking about? What? It's whatever it is. It's a small green object, and it is literally moving back and forth, and it's almost as if it's watching me.
Oh, so that would wake me out.
And she was obviously freaked right out, and
sure.
Well,
because he's out in no man's land besides that, right? Like nothing around him.
Well, he said there's probably his nearest neighbor is probably like 100, 100 clicks, not even.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So you're pretty alone out there.
But we had it set up. We said, look, okay, would you like us to come out and investigate it? And he was all for it. He was like, yeah, let's do this. And then right after that, I had a whole bunch of people that I knew, look at these photos and let me know your thoughts, and do you want to be a part of this investigation, because this is pretty big, man. This is pretty big.
Yeah.
And when that, within a day, I get an email from the guy, and he says, no, I don't want an investigation.
Why?
It's honestly, Michelle, it was the weirdest thing. It's as if somebody got to him. That's the way it seemed like. It was the oddest thing. You know? It was the oddest thing.
Yeah. Maybe not wanting to draw attention. I'll tell you though, see the area, Huntsville, the Muskokas, I did a investigation up there. Paranormal Survivor ended up doing. They covered that one. I was brought on by my now good friend, who at the time was a client, and of course the show buggered it all up. And that's like, it's so inaccurate.
Yeah,
it's just unbelievable. But anyway, on our way back from like all the good stuff, they couldn't show because people don't realize is there were 2 houses involved in that case, and they combined everything from both to make it look like one, because the one family wouldn't participate at all.
Okay, yeah.
But anyway, just to make sense for anybody listening, because I get asked about it all the time. Anyway, on our way back from that investigation, it was, first of all, the location that wouldn't participate was an old trading post. Okay? Yeah. So, like the whole area, I mean, it's in the woods. 3:00 in the morning, we leave. And as we're getting ready, we're just loading up the vehicle. There was this blood-curdling, like Xena war cry scream.
Wow.
In the woods. And I'm sitting there, and we had our medium at the time, and he's 6 Nations. He's cool as a cucumber, right? And
this is normal. I get this all the time.
He did. He looks at me very calmly and goes, "That's a Wendigo."
There you go.
Then I've got Patrick at the time, and he's like in the car going, "Let's get out of here right the hell now." And so I was like, all right, I'm all social, saying goodbye to everybody. And honest to frickin' God, we drove down the highway. We probably went another 5-6 kilometers away from the location. And the windows down, you could still, this thing, it was like it was following. You could hear it in the woods along the line, like along the way. And when I say Xena war cry, I am not even kidding. High-pitched screeching in the woods. I'm thinking, okay, it could be at somebody's property, something crazy. But like, we were clipping, and this thing was just screeching in the woods as we were going.
It's funny, because I remember we were doing some work with the Milton Historical Society.
Right.
And we were working on this small little pioneer cemetery it lay in ruins. It was a loyalist cemetery.
Nice.
And it was in ruins, and all I wanted to do was look at we got to bring pride back to this thing, man. We got to, you hate this. And that's what we did. Thankfully, in the Loyalist Society of Ontario came in and helped it all out, and but anyhow, we were in there doing just in there snapping some pictures and documenting and taking some audio, and stuff, just out of curiosity. And that place is a small little place, but it's probably one of the most insane places in terms of what we were able to gather out. But I remember we were in there one night, and a whole bunch of things just unfolded, just total insanity. We used to what we thought what sounded like ghost chatter. It sounded like, and this is like 1-2 o'clock in the morning, is dead silent. There's nothing around, right? And you hear what sounds like people talking, like chatter, all around you, and there's nobody talking. Okay, what's going on? Like, this is, I hear people. It's like people are talking to us, but we don't, can't make out what they're saying.
Do you think it's because you're stirring things up by changing things, or they're approving, or maybe they're confused?
For instance, that particular night, I wouldn't doubt it, because we've gone in there, we've cleaned it up, we've presented it, we've fixed some of the stones, and before this, just sort of made it look somewhat presentable as much as possible, because people had gone in there and they were knocking stones, whatever stones were left, they were knocking them down. And I mean, I remember going in there one time and there was like candles all over the place, like they were doing some sort of ceremony, you know, whatever, you know, kids are kids, but you know, come on, just, do you really need to do this to a place like this? Come on, it's already beaten and battered. Enough.
Leave it alone.
You know? So anyways, we're in there doing this audio, and all of a sudden you hear this just total maniac, it's not even a word. Maniac. This growl.
Oh.
Like it was unnerving, and I'm like thinking, and I have this on audio somewhere, and of course the recording doesn't do any justice, but you know, I'm thinking, what the hell would growl like that in the middle of the night in this area? Yeah. You know, I know what coyotes sound like. You know, it's certainly not a deer.
Well, and coyotes are screamers too.
Yeah, you know, and when they whine, you hear them. When they cry, you hear them.
Oh, I'm surrounded by them. I know.
yeah. And this was a total like growl. And it was loud as hell.
I've heard enough of those in my time, and I don't have a good answer for that.
You know, and you know, creepy. It's like, okay, that's crazy. But you know, when you're talking about the Wendigo there, I'm thinking of that. I'm like, wow.
Oh, I know. It was insane, that thing. It's one of those sounds, much like your experience, that it just doesn't leave you. No. Right? Like you hear it, and it's like it's etched into your memory. Like I could hear it when I think about it.
Well, it's filed, and then all of a sudden you go somewhere, and then you hear something similar. You're like, right, I remember that noise. Okay, what's going on? You know?
Oh, I know. It still sends this chill up my spine. I don't scare easily by any means. Like,
no.
To me, I work, you know, with ghosts and malevolent. I mean, I only do malevolent cases. Seriously, like I don't. My schedule doesn't really allow me just to go in. Not that I don't like to, just to say, oh, you know, yes, you have, you know, this friendly spirit living in the house. And I tend to refer those to other people who are, that's all they want to do, you know, maybe just help people associate them with their spirit family or whatever. Mm-hmm. If I'm going to take on, you know, a case, like they're usually pretty desperate by the point that they get to me. So I always say I'm either really fearless or I'm just a meathead. I don't know which it is. But
I'm the closer.
Yeah.
I'm closing this deal that nobody else can close.
Exactly. You may kick my ass and hand it to me several times over, but
I'm making sure.
I'm going to make it work for it.
But you know what? I'm like you in that aspect where I enjoy that. I enjoy that. I've been in some pretty scary places, but I don't think I've been scared very often.
No, you know? I'm the same. Yeah. I think the crypto thing is very, I guess it's because of the fact that it's, in some respects, you know, is it flesh and blood? You know?
Yeah.
Honestly, there's some things that are just, if they're not flesh and blood, because I mean, some people with these dogmen, I've had people say with red eyes, and they'll like, they call them hellhounds, and they're huge, and you know, like I've just, believe me, like I say, we're all students. I never stop learning, so I'm always digging, and I can't learn enough, you know. But there's so much out there. I can't even, for the life of me, imagine sharing space with some of this stuff. But I think the fact that I do spend time in Europe, and a lot of the places I go to, there is so much folklore. Yeah. And I've seen some pretty amazing stuff, and I gravitate to places that do have that sort of folklore. But I think if I actually ever saw it, when I was in Brasov in Romania, they have a legend that when you go down into the town circle on a full moon, It's a giant courtyard. It's stunning in the old part of Basha. That werewolves come down from the mountains. Right?
Oh, wow.
You're Carpathians, right? You got the big ass mountains.
Yeah.
I know, right? Oh, I loved it. But let me tell you something. When the old midnight was starting to come by, I was looking to the courtyard going, what would you do if this actually happens? It's nice to talk about the folklore, but, would you be standing still checking it out, or would you be, you're gone like the wind?
I can't remember, because I remember you were talking about your time in Romania the last time you were on, but I can't remember if I asked you this or if you had mentioned that that forest. You know what forest I'm talking about, right?
I do. Yeah, it's allegedly the most haunted forest in the world.
Yes.
Yes, I did. Definitely had. We had an amazing experience there. For sure.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We went in. It's funny because the night we ended up, it just happened. Like we spent I was about 3 weeks, roughly, and it just turned out that the night we were going to be there was the night of the supermoon. And everybody's like, "Oh, you're just going for extra effects." I'm like, "No. How about it's 4 kilometers out of the damn forest, and I want to see my way out in the middle of the night?" Logic would say.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you something, and it's I've come to learn a lot more about the forest since then. First of all, we found out that it was under a no-fly zone. But yet it's weird because we hear airplanes, like the airport, but it's a ways off. But we still see them not over the mountain because it's on a mountain. It's on a big mountain. Okay. But when you go up, you walk in. It's very silent. We went in the middle of the day just to get our bearings, and all the trees are crooked. There's no birds. There's no animals. There's insects, things like that. But I mean, it is quiet except for like a droning sound. And when I say droning, it sounds like wow. It's crazy. Yeah. And it's also said to be Romania's Bermuda Triangle.
Okay. Yeah.
They have a story of a little girl that went missing way back in the day. I think she was like 5 years old or something. Anyway, 5 years later, she resurfaces in the same clothes, same age, but completely spun, like she's just gone. Wow. Like mentally. Yeah, it was weird, but the locals now with camera phones, you can't hide it. They take pictures. They see balls of light over the forest, over the circle all the time. So we went in, and we, there was myself, my 2 friends who are part of Canada's Most Haunted, Melissa, Adriana, and we had a skeptical guy tagging along with us. I'm thinking, oh, this would be fun. Always rely on a skeptical guy just to buzzkill you. But yeah. I'm kidding. Healthy skepticism is always good. So anyway, she was going around doing EVPs, and there were 6 ways into the circle. And I said, okay, well, she goes, I'm going to go to every entrance and do EVPs. And this is after I had a nice lengthy nap and a picnic and everything. And I'm not kidding, I did. and anyway, when she got to the last, it just saved that last entrance for last. I said, there's something festering over there. So anyway, she and the skeptical dude go, and they're doing their thing. And all of a sudden, Melissa and I are in the circle. We're watching her because I wouldn't take my eyes off of her, right? Like I'm just watching what's going on. And she's tapping her chest, and she goes, like, I'm really feeling heavy in my chest, like it's like almost painful. While this is happening, there's a tree. Now, I'm not saying this is a big, gigantic tree, but it's a big enough tree that you can hear it cracking as it's being bent. It's being bent, like something's pushing down on it behind her. And Melissa and I are going, are we seeing the same thing? And she's going, I'm feeling very heavy right now. I'm going, I bet it is. Yeah. and then it cracks and it bounces straight back up beside her, and she's just like, oh my God.
Out of here.
Oh, it was crazy. So anyway, all of our cameras all died. Everything died. Tape recorders. We were relying. I think Melissa had an iPhone 4 at the time. Going back several years, right?
Yeah.
And that's all that was barely hanging on.
Wow.
And we had the ghost box. it was just a hack shack, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Traveling and not bringing anything fancy, right? A
Yeah.
4-kilometer hike, screw that. So anyway,
Give me a radio and I'm gonna hack the hell out of you.
You need a cart, seriously. The thing weighs a ton. Like mine are just they're pretty heavy, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, this thing's carrying on about was speaking to, obviously they're speaking in Romanian, and Adriana is Romanian, so she's translating, and I'm like, well, you know, there is no language barrier, let's test the theory. He said, you know, so she says, can you speak in English? So then they went da, which is yes in Romanian, and then you hear them say yes. I'm like, perfect, okay, great, we got contact. So we're doing all this communicating, and the spirits are validating all kinds of amazing things as to what was on the area before. And then something comes through and starts growling. I mean, just like, you know. And, you know, at that point, we turn around, and when the skeptical guy looks at you and says, I don't think that should be happening, you know you're onto something.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we turn around, and he's pointing, and the tree line is looks like it's folding down onto itself. Now, this was in middle of like July, okay? No wind. It's like hot as crap out. Yeah. So everything's stagnant. And the tree line, it almost looked like somebody was stepping over it. And I'm double taking, I'm going, oh, come on. Like, I can't, like, there's no way, right? And the skeptical guy's going, he can't even speak.
I'm not skeptical anymore.
No, but, you know, they forget easily. They forget quick.
Yeah.
And while this was happening, the ghost box comes out and says, go now, run. All right.
Let's get out of here. Time to go.
You'd have to tell me twice. So anyway, because a 4-kilometer hike, and I'll tell you, all the way down, there was something on our heels. We could hear it in the brush beside the trail. And when we got back to the hotel, which was probably about 5 kilometers away, but considering we're at the top of the mountain, like it wasn't really that far from a vehicle standpoint. We had something like walking around the room that night. Adriana was on the floor above us. She was having stuff going on. The phone was ringing. Like the cell phone just kept ringing and ringing and ringing. And Mel would answer it. And I'm a firm believer in acknowledgement is empowerment, say nothing. So I'm just on my phone tinkering around. And she's looking at me going, can you believe this right now? I'm like, I'm not even going there. Yep, not listening. Right?
Yeah.
But it was insane. And they came home all the way back to Burlington. And for about 2 weeks, they just kept getting phone ringing, nothing on the other end, static. They got growled at, things like that.
Wow.
They didn't bother me because I wasn't acknowledging. I couldn't give a shit about what.
Well, that is just insane, though, eh? That's just completely insane.
It was, and you know, I think it comes back to all that old world stuff. And I laughed because Ghost Adventures was about 3 days ahead of us, and they were there. And, you know, Zach was having his meltdown in the forest. I'm like, well, yeah, wussy.
Meltdown.
You know? Yeah. I'm napping, going, huh, right? But
yeah,
it was interesting. I was out of my elements. I think I'm not one of those people that has to go in there and go, I refuse to be beaten. I'm like, no, that forest handed me my own ass, and I took it with grace, and I left. So that's it.
Yeah, you experienced it, and this is what happened. Yeah.
No, we're going back though. I will conquer.
Oh, yeah. Well, that would be very interesting.
Yeah, I'll probably get it handed to me again, but that's okay. This time I'm just gonna have to work a little harder for it.
but at least you have a little bit more knowledge, and you might last a few more rounds.
Well, let's hope so. But it comes down to the history, right?
Yeah.
Study the history a little bit, which we did, and again, knowing I'm out of my element, because I've never been there before. People get hurt in this forest, like really hurt.
Yeah.
People have been picked up, scratched, thrown, nauseous. I mean, you name it. You know, like there's so many stories that come out of it. I'm like, okay, show respect and just leave. You know, I didn't go running out of there. I walked out gracefully. And I'm thinking, okay, the next time I will be more prepared. And next time I'll just bring a tent and see what happens.
I've got an idea for you.
Uh-oh.
If
Coming
if,
with me?
if this all unfolds the next time you go there, we'll have to ship Alex in there and everything will.
How did I know that was coming?
So Alex is the one man
I'm
show
like Iron Fist.
he will completely undo the history of the haunted forest in one night.
He will give you
clearing it.
safe passage. Safe passage. Nothing will happen to you.
All
You'll
right.
be completely safe.
Okay. Well, we'll bring you along. Like I said, we're gonna prove that theory. I'm down.
You know you're in trouble if he's broken even too, right?
Yeah. Here we go. I'll send him back all damaged. See, you'll have it.
Alex, you okay? I'm never going back there again. Never.
Alex is gonna come back in a fetal position.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
Oh, it's okay. He's used to it. Like,
Yeah, he sounds thrilled.
well, just to give you an idea, I'm sure you're familiar with John Robert Colombo.
Yes.
Oh boy.
We had him on the show.
We tried.
Yes.
We tried to have him on the show. And we were having technical difficulties. Like we were having major technical difficulties.
Right.
So I said, "Okay, Alex, entertain John while I get this thing going. Like get things basically ready and going and all this kind of stuff." And John pretty much handed him a new ass. That's for sure. Oh my God, it was poor. I just Alex, are you okay? He was, man, that was too bad. But
Did John break you?
I think John broke him.
Aw. Terrible thing.
It was too bad because, oh well, that happens. It's thank you for coming back on, Michelle.
Oh God, thanks for having me. I always have a blast with you guys.
Well, it's always a blast having somebody who's local on the show.
Thank you.
We don't have it very often, but it's always good to have somebody local on the show, such as yourself. And it's all you're always welcome to come back. And we definitely have to do something.
I would enjoy that.
I think
we should do a crypto thing.
Hey, I'm up for anything, especially crypto.
Yeah,
And
I'd like to
especially
definitely give that
crypto.
a shot. It's nice to work
Steve
with
wants to know more
like-minded
about his
people.
ancestors.
Yeah.
Who wants to know about my ancestors?
No, about
Steve
my
wants to know
ancestors.
more about his ancestors.
Oh, I see. It's a good thing. Yeah.
See, he's handing it back to me now.
I hear this.
Yeah, definitely. Keep in touch, stay in touch, and take care and keep up the great work, Michelle.
Oh, thank you. Ditto on that, my friend.
And we'll definitely look forward to having you back on.
That sounds great. And hey, have a good Halloween.
Oh, I can't wait for it.
I know, right?
Oh,
Counting down the days.
Exactly. Take care, and thank you again for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Good night.
care.
Hey, bye, guys.
Good night. Bye-bye. Alex, I think we lost Alex. Anyways, Alex, I don't know what happened to Alex. We'll get him back on here. Anyways, I want to thank. Hey, Alex.
Hey,
We lost you.
that's okay.
We want to thank Michelle Desrochers for coming back on. Canada's Most Haunted. Always a blast having her on, and
Yeah, for sure.
there's really not too many people local that I would say that have been doing as much as she has been doing or what she's done, and it's really cool because she's so down to earth.
Yeah, she is.
And it's always intriguing to hear the stories that she's, to share and all that. Oh my God, this cold has beaten me. my voice, my throat is killing me. It's raw as hell. And I haven't had a cold like this in so long. And I thought for sure disappear by now. It just seems to want to keep getting worse. It's just getting worse. Sorry. Oh man. Anyhow, what? Oh well, we got a few minutes left here. What was I going to say? So. What do you think, crypto? Would you be interested in doing something crypto?
Sure, why not?
I mean, it's not. Where would you start?
Well, start with what you saw first of all.
Yeah.
And go from there.
Yeah, we've got a lot of I don't know. I guess info on that. I'd like to get more info from other stories, but it's really, really tough, especially around here, to sort of get people to open up and talk about something like that. I mean, because it sounds so just out of this world.
Yeah, but it's like the paranormal. When it comes more into light, they'll be more willing to talk.
Well, yeah.
You basically got to show them that you mean business, and you're not just going to be someone who's going to be making fun of them.
Well, yeah, obviously. I mean, that goes without saying. But it's so different than the approaching just the regular paranormal, if you will. Going into somebody's house and saying, "Look at." They've got some issues going on with the house, and you got to try to explain it. This is like an entirely different ball game. It
is because you're going to be predominantly outside.
Well, yeah, exterior, right? I mean, your boundaries have just gotten 1,000 times larger.
Yeah.
So trying to control an environment, it becomes almost impossible. Right? You can almost throw that out the window. That's like that with any outside investigation, though, because I mean, you don't know what is in the direct area where you're investigating.
Yeah, exactly.
And but you'd have to bring in maybe some sort of expert, some person who might be well versed in that scenario, or say for instance animals. Because if you're dealing with an animal, at least they know if we're hearing a noise or some sort of, that at least that person who knows about animals will know exactly. Well, okay, that's a so and so, or that's a so and so. At least they'd be able to tell us exactly what that would be, so we can obviously weed that sort of thing out.
Yeah,
but that's tough.
It is tough.
That would be tough to bring in. I think that's about it. We're back next Sunday, or are we? We're back next Sunday.
Yeah.
We're back next Sunday night. We'll let you know what's going on in terms of who might be on the show. What's going on, obviously, just keep an eye on the Facebook group, www.facebook.com/Nocturnal Frequency Radio, to keep your eyes and ears open to that. As to what we're doing. I want to once again thank Michelle Desrochers for coming on this evening. Always a blast having her on, and we look forward to having her back on in the near future. Canada's Most Haunted. Check it out. Until next weekend, guys, thank you for tuning in this evening. You've listened to Nocturnal Frequency Radio live here exclusively on the New Visions Radio Network. Until next weekend, have a good week.
Take care, everyone.
You are listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio, hosted by Steve, Jenny, and it's